The night had always carried a strange weight over the old countryside roads, but no one truly understood how alive darkness could be until they witnessed the lanterns. People called them ghost lights, will-o'-wisps, or the wandering flames, but those who had truly encountered them knew they were none of these. They were something older, something watching. My first brush with them was subtle. I was driving through the farmlands past midnight, the road empty except for my headlights cutting through the thickening fog. Then I saw it, an old lantern swinging gently in the darkness by the roadside, as though someone invisible was carrying it. The flame burned a deep orange, too steady for the wind, too bright for old oil. As I slowed, the lantern drifted closer, crossing the road without anyone holding it. My engine sputtered, the radio crackled with static, and I felt cold fingers trace the back of my neck despite the windows being closed. I slammed my foot on the accelerator, speeding away as the lantern floated behind me like a silent, hungry eye. I didn't know then that others had already seen it before me, each encounter stranger than the last. One of those stories came from a truck driver named Samir, who had stopped on an abandoned stretch of highway to rest his tired eyes. He noticed a dim glow in his side mirror, a lantern, swaying back and forth. Thinking someone needed help, he stepped out, only to realize there were dozens of them floating in a circle around his truck. They hovered, watching him. His phone died instantly, and his truck's headlights faded, consumed by the unnatural darkness. The lanterns tightened their circle, their flames pulsing like heartbeats. Samir felt a whisper brush his ear, a voice that spoke in a language older than anything human. He bolted into his truck and drove blindly through the circle, feeling something scrape along the metal sides as he escaped. When he finally stopped at a gas station, deep scratches ran across the entire length of his truck, 3 long, parallel marks like claws. Then there was the story of 2 sisters, Amina and Kiran, who were hiking at night to watch the stars near an old hilltop shrine. As they climbed, they saw a lantern flickering in the distance, swaying gently as though signaling them to follow. Thinking it belonged to a caretaker, they climbed toward it. But the higher they went, the more lanterns appeared, 3, then 5, then 10, surrounding them in a perfect circle. The lights flickered in rhythmic patterns, as if communicating with each other. The air grew heavier, soundlessly pressing against their chests. Kiran froze when she saw a shadow standing behind one of the lanterns, tall, thin, and motionless. The lantern flames bent toward the shadow, like living tongues reaching to feed on it. The sisters screamed and ran downhill, never looking back until they reached the main road. They realized later that the shrine had been abandoned for more than 50 years. Another encounter happened to a farmer named Javed, who kept hearing footsteps outside his house every night after 2 a.m. thinking it was an animal. He stepped outside with a torch, only to find a lantern hanging from the branch of a dead tree, glowing brightly with no wind to sway it. He approached slowly, and the lantern began swinging faster and faster until the entire tree shook, though the air was completely still. Then he saw something rising from the ground beneath the tree, an outline of a person made entirely of darkness, its form absorbing the weak torchlight. The lantern's flame extended toward the figure, like a thread connecting them. Javed fled back inside and locked every door, hearing faint tapping on his windows until sunrise. A month later, the tree burned overnight, without fire ever spreading to the field around it. The strangest account came from a young woman named Rania, traveling alone on a bike through the village roads at night. She noticed a lantern swinging under a bridge, its flame impossibly bright. As she crossed, her bike stalled. The lantern lifted itself slowly, rising until it floated at her eye level. The flame's reflection in the water below changed shape into a face, her own face, but with hollow eyes, staring back at her. She pushed her bike and ran, hearing the lantern clinking behind her like a predator's footsteps. When she finally reached her home, her mother gasped. Rania's shadow was missing. It returned only after sunrise. More stories surfaced. A security guard who followed lantern lights only to end up miles away from his post with no memory of walking. A taxi driver who saw a lantern inside his rearview mirror even though no one sat behind him. A child who claimed lanterns whispered her name every night. A family who saw rows of lanterns lining the forest path like mourners at a funeral. And a man who swore a lantern entered his house, its flame hovering inches from his sleeping baby's face before it vanished. without a trace. Every encounter shared something in common, lanterns appearing only when the night was unnaturally quiet, as though the world itself held its breath. They moved with purpose, with intelligence, with hunger. Some believed they were spirits searching for the living. Others thought they were guardians of old places where time stood still. But the truth was far more unsettling. I realized at the night I returned to the old countryside road, determined to face what had haunted me since my first encounter. As I drove, the fog thickened again, and the familiar orange glow appeared ahead. One lantern, then another, then a dozen. They formed a pathway leading into the woods. My car stalled, and silence swallowed everything. Slowly, I stepped out, the cold night wrapping around me like a shroud. The lanterns drifted closer, forming a tight circle around me. Their flames flickered violently, and the ground trembled under my feet. A whisper rose through the darkness, 100 voices speaking as one. "We have been waiting." The lanterns lifted higher, surrounding me in a spiral of burning light. I closed my eyes, feeling the heat intensify. When I opened them, the lanterns were gone. The fog was gone. The woods were gone. I was back on the road, my car engine running smoothly, as if nothing had happened. But something had changed. I felt lighter, hollow. When I looked at my car window, my reflection stared back, eyes dark, empty, and glowing faintly orange. Now I know the truth. The lanterns don't just watch. They choose. And once they choose you, you cannot escape their light. They return night after night, floating just outside my home, waiting for me to step into the dark again. Every night, their flames glow brighter. Every night, they come closer. And one night soon, they will take me back forever.